Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to learn a couple of fun things. So this took me about 3 hours in one sitting, and so I sped it up. Feel free to stop and pause and rewind and do all the things. So here I am just prepping my area. I used both the back side and front side of this in the sketchbook just so I could keep it one scene. I'm going to go back later and add some things to it. So what I'm showing you here is I discovered in my pan of paints that I had a couple of repeating colors. So I narrowed my color selection down to about 29, 30 if you count the white one. So I just kind of marked those off on my pan of paints. That way I didn't repeat a color. Because if a color repeats in your pan of paints, it's just for extra because they're common used colors. So here I am using my stencil to draw circles. I didn't do this in a perfectly kind of measured way because I liked it to kind of be messy in a way. I chose circles just because I thought it would be fun and easy to do the washes that we're going to do today. You can pick whatever shape you want. It can be triangles, rectangles, any shape you want. Blobs, funny shapes, anything you want. You don't have to do them all in the center like I did. You could do this on one page if you want to. The main goal is you're going to want to pick maybe a shape that's going to fit as many paint colors as you need. So you'll have to use your paint palette and see what you have and coordinate from there. You can be super organized about it. You can make lines and grids and columns and rows, however you want it to be. You can spread it all out. You can make it messy. Totally up to you. Be creative, make it your own. For me, I just was wanting to teach you guys something, so I just kind of went with some rows and columns just so y'all could kind of follow what I was doing. Okay, so after I get my circles, I'm going to go through my paint palette. I've activated my paints by spraying them. My brush is slightly damp. It's not overly wet. The paper is dry. We're going to do a wet on dry method. So that means the paper stays dry and all that's wet is the paint on our brush. So I went through the paint palette and I used a fairly pigmented area. So we're going to take half of the circle and we're going to just fill in half of the circle with a nice full pigment of color. So you don't want your brush being overly wet. You want to get that full amount of color because we're going to let it dry and come back to it. So here I am going through one after the other, cleaning my brush and blotting it on paper in between each one. So that way it can stay consistent. And all I'm doing is filling in half of the circle. And we're going to let it dry because it's going to have a fun thing that comes next. So I'm going through all of those. I'm kind of discovering what each color is doing. Just kind of getting more acquainted with my palette. Getting close to the end here. You can do a white circle. You don't have to. You may or may not be able to see the changes your white does, and that's okay. There's many theories on why there's white in the palette. Some say it makes things less transparent. Because watercolors, you operate kind of on a transparency level. It's not as much opaque. Okay, here I am kind of cleaning up. I've gotten all my swatches done, so I put my paints away. I'm not going to need those anymore for this lesson. Off to the side, I just kind of wrote down what we're learning here. We're learning the wet on dry method. We're learning some color control, some brush control, and some wash control. Okay, next, so I learned this as I did this activity, and I'm just voicing back over it. You're going to have a clean dill of water. You're going to want a paper towel, and you're going to take your brush, and you're going to wet your brush, and then you're going to kind of just blot the extra water off on a paper towel. And then you're just going to gently go over the color that you have on your paper after it dried, and it's going to reactivate that color. And then you're just going to kind of gently drag it into the white area that's left in the circle. You're not going to want to drag it all the way to the other side, because we're going to want to create a wash where it lightens up as it goes through the circle. So you're just going to want to play with the color and kind of loosen up that middle edge. It could take some back and forth. You're going to kind of just play with your brush and figure out what works best for you and how the color is undried. You should notice that the whole pigment on the paper, it reactivates. So, I mean, it's basically like its own little paint palette, which is really cool. So you'll just gently drag it over a little bit into the white. Then you'll clean your brush again, damp it off, maybe add just a little water. You're going to learn, and then, okay, so let me pause. When you go back in with your clean brush on the same color you're just working on, you're going to want to drag that color a little bit more, and then clean your brush off again and do it again. And you'll notice that throughout that, you're grabbing less and less pigment as you drag it over to that far edge that we hadn't used yet. So what I learned by the end of it is your brush gets a little drier, and the more pigment that you wipe off of your brush as you do this, the difference in the transparency of the wash you'll get. And that might make no sense at the moment, and that's totally okay. It's just kind of one of those things you gotta just kind of play with, and kind of play with the water on the brush and the dryness of the brush, and just kind of, because as we dip into the water here, we're just kind of getting enough just to reactivate that paint that is dry in that circle. And then we'll wipe our brush off, and then we'll drag it a little more, and then wipe it off. Every once in a while, you'll see me add a little water. So it's just to kind of re-wet my brush, and then I do a lot of tapping so that way it's not overly damp. Because when you get overly damp, you're going to get a puddle. And for this, we didn't really want a puddle to do a wash. There's some fun puddle activities we'll do later. But this lesson was mainly to learn just some color control, how to use our brush. It's really just all about getting in there and playing and kind of making a shape and learning how to wash it out. If you guys want to see it more up close, like me just doing one circle, I'm probably going to post that as well. And definitely, you can definitely tell as I went through it, it was a learning curve. Okay, so when you get to the lighter colors, the lighter oranges and the yellows, you most likely will want to switch out for clean water. That way, the darkness of the water doesn't affect your yellow color. And if you go from a blue to an orange or an orange to a blue, you probably want to possibly switch out water also, or clean it off really, really well. That way you don't get the browns that it can make. And we'll go over mixing colors again later. Right now, the goal here is just learning some brush control, some color control, how to wash it out or create what they call a wash, and just controlling the transparency and making the paint do what we want the paint to do in the circle. That's kind of why I just picked circles, because I just wanted to contain an area of where I wanted that one color to go. Like I said, it doesn't have to be in rows. It can be all mixed up or scattered out through the paper. I just went with the center for for more of a teaching purposes kind of thing. And then I filled in all the background because I really enjoy filling in the background, so that's what I enjoyed doing. Here you're just seeing me going around each one, and I first used a black, and then I went over it with a purple, and then later when I do the bigger area, you'll see me use black, blue, and purple, just kind of creating an atmosphere, galaxy kind of thing. So after I finish up the whole background, which you'll see later in the video, I'll probably go back later with like a metallic marker, like a silver Sharpie or a white marker or paint pen, and turn these into planets or add things to the background and the empty spaces. I ran out of time in this one, and I just really wanted us to focus on moving the paint around. And as you saw in some of them, once you get a certain consistency between the pigment and the water, you can literally move those dark places to where you want them to be. So it was really cool, and that's going to come in handy later when we are trying to create highlights and shadows. So in this process, that's kind of something you're probably going to discover as you play with the water and the pigment. So that's a good first step into learning the shadows and lights and how to move things around. One thing else I'll add, you can flip-flop it. So like I did dark to light. If you want the dark side to be on the right side, that's totally fine. It doesn't matter. It can be up or down. This is how my brain worked on this day. And I paint with my right hand, so having the darker side on the left side and then dragging it to the right felt more comfortable. So here I am just filling in the background, nothing special. I was playing with how dark I could get the color, because I'm a person that loves contrast, and I have seen that you can actually get very dark with watercolors. So I was just kind of what I was learning here, is seeing how dark I could get it, and it took some time. Not gonna lie. So anyway, that's about it for this one. It's gonna finish up with the background, and then you'll see a picture of it just drying, and then a picture after I took off the tape. Don't be alarmed if my edges weren't perfectly straight, because that's not particularly something I personally worry about, but feel free to have it as aligned as you want. See you in the next one.